Have you noticed that we live in a time where nobody wants a moment anymore? They want a scene, not a sweet memory or a private laugh, not a meaningful conversation you tell your friends about later. No, we need a skyline, a camera angle, a dramatic pause, a viral clip, and at least 12 strangers in the comments calling it iconic. And these past couple weeks, between sports, social media, public stunts, and a man at a restaurant on the 4th of July who apparently woke up and chose confusion, I kept coming back to the same phrase, the audacity. But the more I sat with it, the more I realized that this episode isn't really about outrageous behavior. It's about something deeper. Because underneath all the noise, I think there's a real human question here. What are we using our boldness for? Are we using it for attention or branding, money, exposure, clout, the algorithm? Or are we using it for something that actually matters? Maybe for love or loyalty, peace, protection, for saying, I care enough to go all in. And maybe that's the tension of the whole thing. Because on one hand, yes, we're living in a culture that can turn literally anything into content. But on the other hand, maybe part of what people are hungry for is more authentic audacity, the kind of boldness that makes you feel something in a world that can be pretty humdrum. So today, I want to talk about audacity. Let's get into it.
Hey, Steffi K got something to say. Talk that listens, clears the way. Truth on the mic, grounded in change. You sticking with that? Oh yeah, we sticking with that. Laugh it out, talk it through, we ain't looking back.
Some chats ain't easy, but we take it slow. Tough stuff, tackle now, watch us glow.
You sticking with it? Yeah, we sticking with
Welcome back, everybody. I'm Steffi K, and this is You Stickin With That? When I first started thinking about this episode, I was leaning hard into the obvious angle. You know, the nerve, the public stunts, the over-the-top behavior. And listen, some of it still applies. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized I don't actually want a world with less audacity. I think I want a world with better reasons for it. Because there's a kind of audacity that's exhausting. Audacity for attention, for ego, for spectacle, for please look at me. Audacity for brand building, disguised as sincerity. That kind wears me out. But there's another kind of audacity that I actually think the world could use more of. The audacity to love someone out loud. The audacity to stand up for somebody. The audacity to protect your people. Or the audacity to say what you mean. The audacity to make a real gesture in a world full of half-effort, low-risk, emotionally unavailable nonsense. And maybe what we're actually starving for is authentic audacity. Because if everything becomes content, we stop believing the gesture. And when we stop trusting the gesture, we stop knowing what to do with passion when we see it. So let's start with the Empire State Building couple. If you missed it, this couple illegally climbed the Empire State Building. They unfurled a peace sign and managed to give us a proposal, a skyline moment, a public statement, and a criminal charge all in one package. That's a lot to accomplish before lunch. And my first reaction was probably the same as half the internet. What in the Nicholas Sparks meets Red Bull is going on here? Because on the surface, part of me wanted to roll my eyes. It felt huge and cinematic and, well, fake. But that's where it gets interesting. Because if these were just two random people, and a guy risked everything because he was wildly in love and wanted to make a giant romantic gesture with a message of peace attached to it, I think people might receive it differently. I think there's still a part of us that wants men to be bold, to be intentional, to risk embarrassment, to make a moment. And their sign was quite spectacular. It read, "When the power of love beats the love of power, the world knows peace." That's a good line. It's actually a meme I've posted a couple times. That all happened on July 1st, 2026. These are people whose entire brand is built around danger, spectacle, and being seen. And that changes the math. It's a couple who's been together publicly for about 10 years, and they have actually a Netflix documentary called Skywalker's The Love Story. Because now we're not just looking at a proposal, we're looking at exposure, future branding, and the kind of viral attention that can absolutely turn into money, audience growth, headlines, and another chapter in the look how fearless and iconic we are business model. So, yes, maybe there was love there. I'm not saying there wasn't. Could it have been a real proposal? Possibly. All I'm saying is when your relationship already lives in the business of spectacle, it becomes very hard to separate the gesture from the marketing. Was it romantic? Maybe. Was it strategic? Most likely. Was it a peace statement? Sure. Was it a brand extension with an engagement ring attached? That's not off the table. And that's really why people had such a mixed reaction, because we don't know what to trust anymore. We've seen too many staged moments, too many private milestones with perfect camera angles and monetization potential. So now we don't right away say, oh, that was love. We say, who's filming? What's the angle? How many followers did they gain by breakfast? And I don't really love that, because maybe the world doesn't need fewer grand gestures. Maybe we need grand gestures with cleaner motives. But all of this got me thinking about another kind of audacity altogether, because not all bold public gestures are about romance, right? Some are about protection. And that brings me to Sophie Cunningham. Now, let's swing from rooftop proposals to sports drama, because apparently we need some range. The Sophie Cunningham moment hit different for me because, unlike the Empire story, this didn't feel like romance or branding. The Sophie moment was less look at me and more like, I'm not letting that slide. And that's a different kind of audacity. It's not soft or polished or elegant, but it's human. It's loyalty, protectiveness. It's a kind of energy that says, I see what's happening and I'm not going to stand here and pretend I don't. Now, I'm not handing out sainthood because someone pointed a finger in a heated moment. But I do think there's something very real about people who go to bat for the people they love, or the people that they feel are being left exposed. And that's the piece I don't want to miss. Because in a world full of passive people, detached people, lack of empathy, or cool people saying, I'm not getting involved, there's something refreshing about someone who actually cares enough to react. Too strongly? I don't know. I mean, she did get fined for it. A bunch of them got fines in that game. And I should point out it was a game between the Fever and Mercury. And they are saying her point was 22 seconds long. I've now seen it all over. They're now promoting shirt sales and hats, and Sophie's turned into a version of the Statue of Liberty pointing, all kinds of things. And let me be clear, I'm not in any way saying the point wasn't authentic. I've seen her interview where she said there's a long history there, and it involves a teammate who left abruptly to go play for Mercury. Words had already been exchanged on the whole issue. And in the middle of everything, I think people are starving for something that feels alive. Not reckless or fake or manipulative, but alive. And I think the point did just that. She was standing up for her teammate, and she wasn't taking any crap. And it sure did resonate. And being the hopeful romantic that I am, I'm not telling anybody to go commit a felony for romance. I'm also not saying every feeling needs fireworks and a banner and a helicopter shot. What I am saying is I think we've overcorrected in this world where people are almost embarrassed to care too much, embarrassed to go big, to show up, to protect someone, to say, I love you. Maybe we don't need more performance. We need more sincere intensity. The kind that says, I care enough to make a gesture. I care enough to take a stand. I care enough to be seen trying. That kind of audacity, I think it wakes people up. Speaking of stickin' stories, I've got a good one for you. So on the 4th of July, in my area, there were several fireworks options. You could watch them from the beach, or you could watch them from like Tampa Bay. And so I chose the bay to watch fireworks over the water. So prior to that, I took myself to dinner. I was down by the pier, and I chose a restaurant that I've been to before that I like. And I knew it would be crazy busy. It seemed like the whole entire town was there at the time. And so I thought I'll just try to sit at the bar and squeeze in there somewhere and hope there's a spot. So upon first look, there was absolutely not a spot. But once I rotated inside, there was one little spot wedged between a whole bunch of people. And I was like, cool. So I sit down. Pretty soon, the people on both sides that had me squished in left, and new people arrived. As I'm sitting there minding my own business, waiting for my food, a group of 3 showed up over here, and 2 guys showed up over here. They seemed to know each other and be in a prior conversation before they sat down. And this guy right here let's call this guy Dustin. They all sat down at the same time, basically. And there was a little drama because another guy from somewhere else was going to sit here, and he thought they took all the spots, but there was really one left. But in the meantime, he's very crabby about there not being any spots. So he's kind of creating a tiny scene. So Dustin says, I'm so sorry that happened to you on the 4th of July. I'm going to pay for all your meals and all your drinks. And then he looks at me and is offering to pay for my drinks too at the same time. I said, I already have a drink. Thank you. Great. So this guy, who's a longtime friend of Dustin's, leaves. So now there he is there. Okay. There was a lot of people there. So everyone squished in almost like shoulder to shoulder. Okay. Cool. So we do some kind of toast with the 3 people over here, the strangers over here. I don't know what that was about, but that happened. And then he keeps talking to me. I'd maybe exchanged a few sentences with him, did the toast with the other people, after which he decides to look me up and down and say, I do ya. Cool. Being a guy's girl, I said, thanks for the compliment. He then proceeded to tell me his entire life story, where he was heading to fireworks across the bay, and he had a 45-minute boat ride, and he was in charge of all the fireworks for the night, for all the people. His ex-wife was going to be there, who he's sleeping with still. And I know all about the first wife. I know about his kids. I know what he likes to do in his private time. I know quite a bit. Within about 5 to 10 minutes, I knew it all. So now, on the other side of him, a couple shows up, okay? So they start talking to him, and he's going on and on about how we were exchanging numbers and we were going to flirt for a while. And I don't even know what he was saying because I quit listening. But I was chiming in saying, nope, nope, and nope. I kind of felt like Jim Halpert, the Jim Halpert character on The Office, where he'd kind of look at the camera like, this can't be real right now, because it was that crazy. So the way he was going, I kind of thought I was going to get an invite to go watch the fireworks with the ex-wife, his kids, and everybody else. However, my body language and the words I did use must have indicated that he shouldn't go there. So in the end, he thanked me for my conversation and went on his way. A few things struck me in that whole thing. He had told those 3 people over here he was paying for all their food and drinks and everything, and he didn't pay for any of that. I noticed. Number 2, the people that he just met that he didn't know, who were from New Jersey, when Dustin got up to leave, they said, see ya, boss. So I had to ask the question, how many people do you call boss after just meeting them? So I feel like the story was there could have been fireworks, but not, because I chose intelligence in the situation. But realistically, Dustin kind of spurred this whole episode of the Audacity, because I thought, who says that to somebody when they just walk up and sit down? What am I missing here? So what do we do with all this? Empire State couple, Sophie Cunningham, and the random guy Dustin from the 4th of July. I think the takeaway is this. Audacity by itself is not the problem. The question is, what is it attached to? Audacity that's attached to ego, exhausting. Audacity attached to branding, usually transparent. Audacity attached to attention for attention's sake, hard pass. But audacity attached to love, peace, protection, courage, loyalty, telling the truth, and making people feel less alone, that's different. That's the kind of boldness that can actually move something. And maybe that's the challenge for all of us. Not stop being bold or play it safe or never make a gesture. No, maybe the challenge is if you're going to go big for something real. Love somebody on purpose, protect somebody on purpose, speak up on purpose. Make the gesture mean something. Let it come from sincerity and not strategy. Because I don't think humanity needs more polished nonsense. I think we need people who are willing to care out loud again. For my Steffi K thought of the day, I have this. When an event happens that goes viral on the internet and everybody's talking about it at the water cooler, etc., I ask myself this question. Is something else happening that I'm not supposed to pay attention to? Or said another way, is something happening that I am supposed to pay attention to, and this is a distraction from that event? I will typically try to find out if there's another big event that day. The Sophie Cunningham thing happened on June 22nd, and the Empire State Building proposal happened on July 1st. So I've already gone back and done a little research on anything else that could have happened on those days. And you might enjoy taking a little trip down that lane too, just for fun. And for one more quick second Steffi K thought of the day, did you know that Sophie Cunningham actually played high school football? She was a kicker. She joined her team during the state playoffs her senior year. When their starting kicker got hurt, she went in and she did make an extra 2 points. She's the first female to score for Rock Bridges High School in Columbus, Missouri, according to multiple sources. And that was in 2014. So this is where I land with all this. Maybe the world doesn't need less audacity. Maybe it needs better audacity. Authentic audacity. The kind rooted in love, peace, protection, and the kind that reminds us we're still human in a world that can feel awfully staged. Because apparently Audacity is alive, well, and getting plenty of cardio. I'm Steffi K, and I am sticking with that. You can meet us here every Wednesday night at 6:30 p.m. Eastern Time. Thanks for being here. Thanks for listening. If this episode made you laugh or made you immediately think of somebody who absolutely needs to hear it, please send it to them. Until next time, life is like a book, so write a good one. Love you guys. Have a great week.